Everything that I had on paper, I checked all the boxes and I still felt sad and unfulfilled. And I didn't know why.
You're listening to the Quit Your Job and Get Creative podcast, where we talk about quitting your unfulfilling job and pursuing your creative entrepreneurial dreams. My goal is to help you realize earning a living doing what you love is possible for you. You'll hear stories of women who have quit their 9-to-5 jobs and started their creative businesses. You'll learn how they did it, the ups and downs, and secrets to success. I believe that you are good enough and capable to live out your dreams. I'm your host, Jocelyn Clarkson. Now, let's get started.
Welcome, gorgeous souls. I am so excited for today's episode because I think it is one of those first necessary steps that need to happen for you to continue on your entrepreneurship journey. Or even if you haven't started and you're wondering whether or not this is the right path for you, I do think that you need to do some exploration within to really understand if you're following your calling. I think the hardest part is figuring out what it is that your calling is, what it is that you want to do, and what it is that actually fulfills you. But I think awareness is the first step in knowing, right? It's like when you think about people getting through, like, let's say alcoholism, the first step is admitting that you have a problem or being aware that there is something that needs to be changed. And so, going through life and just moving on through life and not really understanding what needs to change, that's the hardest part. When you don't know what needs to change, that's the hardest part. Think of it like you're trying to fix a car or you're trying to reboot your computer. If you don't know where the issue is, then it's hard to reboot the computer or it's hard to fix the car. So today I'm going to go through some signs that might signal that you're not following your calling. And I'm going to walk you through some of the feelings that I felt that really indicated how I was feeling, some physical signs that I saw, and basically how I came to the realization that I was in an unfulfilling career and, I knew that I needed to change that aspect of my life. So I just want to preface this by saying that this was my experience and that you may go through the 5 topics I'm going to cover and realize that maybe it's not your career. Maybe you're happily complacent and maybe you're happily working in a career and it's not your job. Maybe it's something else that needs to change. Maybe it's where you're living, or maybe it's, who knows, your boyfriend or your spouse or your significant other. Maybe that's where your unhappiness is coming from. So I just want to be clear on that. So one of my first signs that I realized I was not following my calling was, first off, feelings. When I first started, I did not know that I wanted to be a fashion designer. I did not even know that I was into fashion. The way it manifested itself was over time. But I will say, about 3 years into my career, when I was working as a consultant for one of the big 4 accounting firms, I thought I wanted to be this big shot financial consultant and work my way up to partner and travel the world and just, make an impact in businesses. And to be completely honest, I was just attracted to the money and the allure of the travel and making a lot of money. When it came into reality, when I landed the job, I was, over the moon. And I would admit the first year, I was happy. At least I thought so. I was learning so much. I was traveling. Not so much the places that I wanted to travel, but, I traveled to Canada, I traveled to New York, and those were fun. But I would say about a year into my career, I started to really see the signs. Once the glamour wore off, once I kind of stopped being in this training mode into this new job, I just realized that I wasn't excited about the work that I was doing anymore. I started to feel like I didn't have control over my schedule, like I didn't have the freedom to really just do the things that I loved, I slowly realized that I was kind of locked into this job that was very demanding mentally and schedule wise. There were days where I was working Saturdays and Sundays, and it started to affect time with my then boyfriend, fiance. It started affecting my abilities to, just be home and do the things that I love and go to the gym and spend time with friends and family. And I realized that it started to get in the way of that. And I think the hardest part was realizing that I could not or the hardest part was realizing that I was not in control of my schedule, that if I wanted to take vacation, I had to ask for approval. In other words, permission. I could not just get up and go. And not that I think that anyone in any job can just get up and go, but I do think that being able to tell your employer, hey, I'm going to take these days off. Here's at least a month notice for you to find someone else that can cover. I think that is what I was expecting. But I think companies have the ability to say no. Like, no, you can't go on vacation. Just flat out, no, it's not the right time. It's busy season, blah, blah, blah. So the first thing was, I wasn't excited about the task that I was doing anymore. I felt like I was just given busy work. And oftentimes it wasn't busy work. It was impactful work in the role, but I just wasn't excited about the work that I was doing. And I also reached a point where I felt sad and unfulfilled, and I didn't know why. It first really started with realizing that, I had all these things on paper. I had the job, a well-paying job. I was making 6 figures at the time. I had a nice apartment in, downtown Chicago. I was able to walk to work. I, was working out, was spending time, I'm a big fan of SoulCycle. So I was going to SoulCycle on Saturdays. I was drinking my green juice, on some mornings. And, I had an amazing, amazing boyfriend, now husband, but I had an amazing boyfriend, a great group of friends, and great close family. My mom is very close to where I live, and my sisters, and, everything that I had on paper, I checked all the boxes, and I still felt sad and unfulfilled. And I didn't know why. So I think the first step is realizing, taking a pulse on how you're feeling overall, like day to day, not how you're feeling during the weekend, because obviously that might change, right? Depending on what you're doing. But I think understanding is overall the big picture. How do you feel? Especially, I think if you find that you are not feeling happy and you seem to have all these boxes checked, right? Of all the things that you think you need to be happy, or most of them checked. And if you still don't feel happy, I think that, something needs to change. And, the second thing, another sign that you're not following your calling is point blank, you dread going to work. And for me, I didn't really see it right away because, again, I've always wanted to be this big shot consultant, make great money. I was making great money traveling, but there were small signs. I would say that, I started to hit snooze on the alarm every morning, coming in later. And that's not to say that people, if you hit snooze, you should quit your job. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is beyond that. I wouldn't just hit my alarm once. I would hit it several times. There were often times where I would lay in bed just like staring up at the ceiling and just really like praying to God or just speaking to him and saying, why, God? Why? Like, I do not want to do this. I look forward to coming back from work. It was beyond just hitting the snooze. It was literally dreading, feeling like I had no other choice, feeling like I had no control, feeling miserable about starting your day. And if this is how you're starting your day, then you're doing something wrong. And from the moment I woke up, I knew, I dreaded going to work. And then once I was at work, I stopped applying myself. I've always been what you call an overachiever. Would even say I was teacher's pet, but I always strived for good grades in school and I would always do extracurriculars and just would always do the most, I guess. I stopped applying myself at work. I wasn't doing the extracurriculars at work that would kind of lead to a promotion or that would help improve your network within the company. I didn't want to sign up to be a mentor to someone else. I didn't want to join any of the other affinity groups that the company had to offer. I just didn't want to do anything extra. I wanted to do the bare minimum to keep my job. And another thing was that I stopped making goals for myself. I was not interested in bettering my abilities in my role or my capabilities and my talents in my role. I was not interested in moving up in the organization. I remember I was up for the next role, which would have been manager. And I just remember going through thinking about, okay, what do I need to do to make manager? And just thinking, I don't want to be manager. I would rather stay where I am. I don't want to move up. I don't want to take on more work doing something that I am not happy about, and it manifested into me changing companies. I thought maybe if I just changed companies, maybe it was just the company. And I also changed companies to a Fortune 500 company, still doing the same thing. I was, a financial audit, really, an auditor for financial services, but I moved to a Fortune 500 company doing the same. And, this company was amazing. It's an amazing company to work for. But what I've realized just a few months into this new job was that it wasn't the company. It wasn't the people. It wasn't the department. Sure, certain companies are better to work for. Sure, certain bosses are better to work for. But what I really realized was that it wasn't the job, it wasn't the people, and it wasn't necessarily the role. It was what I was doing. It wasn't what I wanted to do. And it wasn't even the hours, because this new company they did not work you past the 9 to 5, and they respected your boundaries. They respected your weekends. They were very forgiving, and they were all about mental health, and they gave you days off. Like, they were amazing, an amazing company to work for. It's probably the best company I worked for, but I still was miserable. And it wasn't the exterior factors. It was exactly what I was doing that was influencing how I felt.
As a small business owner, coming up with marketing materials such as business cards, email graphic, ads, shipping mailers can be daunting, especially if you don't know how to work Photoshop or Illustrator. And to get real with you, sometimes you don't have the budget or time to outsource these tasks. If you can relate, let me introduce you to one of my must-have tools for every entrepreneur, Canva.com. Canva is a business owner's dream come true. It's a simple-to-use platform that lets you create the beautiful graphics that your business needs without the need of a graphic design background, like me. I have used Canva to create business cards for my clothing brand, Swap and Shred. I've created marketing slips that I insert in every shipping order, email graphics that I include in my marketing materials to my subscribers, gift certificates, coupons. I've even used Canva to create my podcast cover art. Canva has thousands of free templates you can use that save you time and money. They have a library of stock photos, graphics, and cool art that you can easily drag and drop onto your design. Canva is free to use, but I 1000% recommend upgrading to their Pro account because it allows you to use all their features. The Pro account allows you to save your brand logo, colors, and fonts so you can easily edit templates to align with your brand colors and theme. You have access to their premium photos and graphics, which comes in so handy when you don't have your own content to use. The Pro account allows you to resize templates so you can create designs for Instagram, Facebook cover art, posters, and so much more. Sign up for the Pro account for just $12.99 a month. What is that? 2 lattes? And because I'm here to help you, use my link in the show notes to get a free 30-day Pro trial. You heard that right. Free 30-day trial. If you don't love it, simply cancel it. No strings attached. Happy designing. Now let's get back to the show.
And then, at the end of the day, I also just felt emotionally exhausted. I think feeling exhausted at the end of the day is a normal thing, especially if you work in a high risk area or just a very stressful environment. But I felt emotionally exhausted, even on days where the workload was light. I just felt exhausted. So, two, I think a sign that you're not following your calling is realizing that you dread going to work. 3, you have thoughts about what other things you'd rather be doing. Now, this is not to say that I would not rather be on a yacht somewhere drinking champagne. Of course, I think that we all would love that most of the time, but I would have continuous and repeating thoughts about what I'd rather be doing. It's daydreaming on a consistent and habitual basis about doing something completely different. I would just daydream about, owning a fashion business, owning a clothing line, traveling to New York for New York Fashion Week, traveling to Paris, traveling abroad to meet with vendors, suppliers. It was beyond the life that I was living. And it was also, I would dream about making an impact. So really bringing well-paying jobs to women in Chicago and even in my home country where my family is from in Guatemala. But I would always find that I would rather be doing something else. Anything else really. Would think about what are some other roles that I can do? What are some other things that I can do? And was looking for other jobs constantly on LinkedIn at work. I don't recommend that, but I think it's realizing that you'd rather be doing anything else than what you're doing at the point in time. Other signs that you're not following your calling, there are those physical signs. I saw that while I was working as a consultant, that I started turning to food for comfort. The days just got longer and longer while I was working there. And on days that I knew I was going to have to be there until 10 or work till 10 to 11 to meet a crazy deadline, I would just suck it up. And then I would say, okay, well, I need to reward myself or make myself feel better with a cheat meal. And so I would literally go to the 7-Eleven by the office and just load up on snacks, just things that weren't good, like complete trash. I would get takeout from, not the healthiest places. And to me, that made me feel better. And naturally, I started to gain weight, right? I was sedentary. I was sitting in a chair all day, but also I was turning to food as a way to comfort me because I was miserable and I couldn't just stop doing the work. Like my bosses would I don't know what would have happened, but I would have probably lost my job. And in hindsight, probably would have been better off. But, I'm not the person that just leaves, right? So I started stress eating. I started gaining weight. I started to drink more. I would come home on those long days and just drink wine. Then it went from just drinking on the weekends to drinking half a bottle every night, really to just numb the misery, I guess. On the weekends, I would drink to black out. And when it came time to get ready for work on Sunday, I would get the Sunday scaries. I would get anxiety. I started getting anxiety. But I think what it really came down to was I started to cry. I mean, there were times where I would just, at the end of the day, I would just lay in bed and just cry because I would cry because I was unhappy. I would cry because I felt unworthy. I cried because I felt stuck. I felt like I couldn't. What was I going to do? I mean, I wasn't going to let go of this 6-figure income, everything I worked for, went to college and got a business degree, had all these years of experience, all these internships. And what was I going to do? Just move to another company to do the same, to be just as miserable? And so that's when I realized that, again, I felt stuck and I found myself crying almost every night. And in my last month with the consulting company, I probably cried 3 nights out of the 5. it really started to take a toll on me. There was no out, or at least I felt that way. And another sign you're not following your calling are your habits. I just found myself following people who inspired me. I remember coming across a show on Netflix, Girl Boss, sort of a tale or a story of Sophia Marusso's, who started Nasty Gal, the clothing line or clothing company. And I found myself watching, just absolutely loving the show. The show's about how she started at a young age and how she got started with the fashion company. She wasn't your ordinary teen. She didn't follow necessarily the path that society wants you to follow, college, corporate job. She took her own path. And I just remember watching this show on Netflix and just feeling so sad when the season ended and I was looking forward to the next season. I wanted to know what was next. And I just really dwelled into the show. I loved it so much. But, I also found myself watching documentaries about business, watching Shark Tank. I was following Bethany Frankel from Real Housewives of New York City. She started her own business ventures. She started Skinny Girl Margaritas, and I just loved hearing her story and seeing how she did it. And, I would find myself following people on Facebook, Instagram, of people who lived lives that I wanted to live. And just looking outside of my life for happiness, at least in my career. I was at a point where I lived for the weekends and vacation. And I remember just not wanting to leave vacation. And I can tell you that vacation is amazing. Even now, where I'm running my clothing company and I'm happy, I can tell you that when I go on vacation with my husband and friends, and, sure, it's great, but I actually look forward to coming home. I look forward to going back into the routine and living my life. I, have created a routine and a life for myself that I don't look for a vacation. I don't need it. I don't desperately need it. So one key takeaway that I want you to get is that awareness is the first step. So understanding first if this void has anything to do with your career. It could be another void where you realize, actually, I'm feeling unhappy because my boyfriend is a jerk, and you realize he's not good for you. That's a great realization, right? But it might not be regarding your business or your career. So I think the first thing is to make sure that this void and this unfulfillment is really coming from what you're doing as your job and career. The fact that you're listening to this podcast, may be an indicator that something in your life needs to change. And then once you realize you have bigger plans for yourself, once you realize that you're not happy where you are right now, then you can create a path for yourself and get to your end destination, right? So what I want you to do is I want you to write down your perfect day. Now, I don't want you to write down a vacation day or a special day. I want you to write down your perfect day on a day-to-day basis. One where you would quote unquote work. So try not to pick a perfect day. Think about what you would do on a perfect Tuesday, on a perfect Monday. What does your day look like? I want you to write down everything that you do from the moment that you wake up. What time are you waking up? What are you doing? How are you feeling? Who are the people in your life? Are you waking up alone? Are you waking up next to a significant other? Where are you? What's the weather like? What does your house look like? Are you in the same city that you're currently living in, or are you in a different country? Write down everything, to the very meals that you are eating, to exactly what you're wearing and how you're feeling. Once you're done writing down your perfect day, think through, A, did you include going to work in that day? And 2, if you did you include what you do, what you're currently doing? If not, think through what you're doing as a career now and see if it aligns into your perfect day. Does doing this current role that you're doing, does that align to your perfect day? Does the job make you feel fulfilled? And do you picture yourself doing this until retirement? Some say it's 65, might be longer. But does your job get in the way of your perfect day? The goal is to determine whether or not you're truly happy in your career and or job. Once you know this, then you can start planning your dream life. So don't miss out on this. Write down your perfect day and then spend some time to think through how your job, career aligns into your perfect day. If it doesn't, then it's time to start looking for a new path for you.
Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you found this episode inspiring. I know getting started with your entrepreneurial journey can seem like a big task, but I am here to help you. I created a free guide with actionable steps on how to get started. Click on the link in the show notes and drop your name and email to have it delivered straight to your inbox. Have a beautiful day.